welcome to the Bald Ambition Podcast. I am your very bald host, Mookie Spitz, and my equally bald guest today is Mr. Howard Wallach. Welcome aboard, Howard.
It's true. Hello, and how are you?
I am bald as you. Howard runs an entertainment company in Chicago, A to Z Entertainment, Alpha to Zebra, and he's going to talk about how he does what he does and the unique way that he does it. And it fits our ongoing theme here on the podcast of client relationships, consultative selling, and understanding the needs of our clients to build our business and establish the loyalty and trust that serves us so well. Welcome aboard.
Indeed.
Howie. So tell us a little bit about A to Z. Begin at the beginning, and then at the end, you can stop.
I'll do that. I am fortunate that I found a career path that allows me to sort of exploit my personality, right? I produce special events. I started this company in 1987. I got a taste of private parties, milestones, and meetings before I was of age to be in nightclubs, but I was working in a nightclub, and that environment exposed me to everything from amateur boxing to fundraisers to, fashion shows. And slowly but surely, that experience, people would say, hey, could you also entertain at my husband's 40th, my daughter's quinceañera? And I realized that there was a big potential in producing special events. You and I know each other from our childhood. I was billed as a class clown. And how nice is it that I found an avenue to be that outgoing, charismatic guy as a DJ and as a master of ceremonies. That would unfold in many different versions of that, from an event host to an auctioneer to a game show host. I mean, it's really manifested beautifully for me. When I started my company, I modeled it after a company that I had exposure to. They reference this. It's called a multi-op. So basically, I leverage off of sending other entertainers out the door, right? People are planning special events, and my understanding from day one is that they are vulnerable, and they don't want to overpay. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to make any mistakes in front of, whether it's coworkers, vendors, their clients, or their family or their friends. So very early in my path, you might say, my journey, I wanted to surround myself with people that get it. Sort of this hospitality angle that we are being of service, that we are adding joy to these people that are otherwise nervous or frenetic, biting their nails. I hope everything's going to lay out just fine. So often when I am meeting someone for the first time that is engaging, or inquiring about what we do, I try to put them at ease right away. And I say, of the things I offer, my gift to you is that you will be present. You are not going to have to worry about that you've hired all these different vendors, a caterer from here, a photographer from here, a decorator from here, a party planner from here. It's not a given that all of these entities will work together seamlessly. I'm going to be your favorite vendor. I'm going to be your number one advocate. I'm going to be the guy that champions your vision. And we'll do that.
So how did the class clown that we used to know and love get to be the consummate consultative businessman? Because that's quite a leap. I remember
Yeah.
you being consistently thrown out of class,
Hmm.
brought back in disgrace, and then rinse and repeat pretty much the next day. And you were everyone's favorite. You were entertaining, you were engaging, you were funny, but you were also insubordinate. So we go from that guy who is the entertainer, now entertaining people with your DJing abilities, with your event experiences that you create. How do you go from A to Z, from being thrown into detention on a regular basis to being that guy who makes people feel good and delivers as promised?
It's a great question. It has a little bit of a deeper answer than you may be prepared for, but I will try to answer it succinctly with some levity. I unfortunately had a big deal happen when I was 15. In the space of 4 months, my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer. And while she was being treated for that, she had a stroke. And in that very short amount of time, lost her will to live, became frail and pathetic, and withered away and died. And I would bet that everybody that knew me thought that I would be the guy that would be wild and reckless, go to high school and do bongs and, drive fast cars and all of that. Well, there was something
That
in
that
me
was
that,
that was me. That was me, by the way.
oh, that was you.
Except maybe without the fast car.
Yeah.
But
I
please proceed. Please
I
proceed.
think I had to grow up fast. And I remember I had taken maybe 2 or 3 weeks off from school in what us Jewish folk call the Shiva and the grieving period. When I finally went back to school, I was given my first life lesson of um, get back to it. No one gives a shit, and I did horrible. When I came back to school, I already wasn't a great student. I didn't have those disciplines. I didn't have that acumen. But it was even worse. And I had teachers that were apathetic saying, deal with it. You're back in school. Let's get the work done. And there was something in me that said, I need to be an adult now. I need to, make my own doctor appointments, get my own haircuts, get my own shopping done. My dad worked 9 to 5, and even when my mom was alive, he wasn't parental, so to speak, right? He was doing his own thing as a career salesman. So I found myself in a very interesting predicament. Like, I need to be accountable, I need to be a mensch, and I would like to, in some vague way, make my mom proud. And I think what always happened, even when I was little, was I had this DNA as a pleaser. And I think that it all stems from that I wanted to be liked, I wanted to be pleasing. And I've since been able to change that self-talk to, I want to be a guy that adds value. That every room I leave is better for me having been there. Right? It is a quality that I have also passed down to my now adult children. That um, live in empathy, be of service whenever you can. You see all these memes now on social media that everyone's having a shitty day. You don't know what people's packaging are. So give them the benefit of the doubt. Be kind. Be generous. Don't be, quick to judge. And I think that those traits sort of opened doors for me that otherwise did not, because I was around other entertainers, other DJs who, as you know, in the nightclub world, they lived the nightlife. There's this unabashed, let's party. After we get off of work at 4 a.m., let's go out for late night steak and eggs. And you're driving home with the sun coming up. I had a taste of that life. And when I started my own business, I was 23. And I said, I'm done with that. I developed some work ethic that I inherited from my father that, I took responsibility for my actions. I realized that being self-employed meant I really had to my success was gauged on what I did. I couldn't blame outside forces. And I
It
just
sounds like a perfect storm of a young person enduring a terrible tragedy that woke you up with some of the existential realities of being an adult, of being a responsible human quite suddenly. And there seems to be this niche, this white space. In consultative selling, we're always looking for that way to differentiate and enter a market in a unique way that's reflective of our brand. And that's in the entertainment industry, as you described, which is very transactional and doesn't really dive deep usually into the needs of the customer. So this combination of you being the class clown, the entertainer, the individual who likes to please other people, to amuse them, to make them feel good, coupled with this sense of adult responsibility to put together a viable business that delivers on time, on budget, but also with this critical third element, which is empathy, which is understanding that your customers have their needs and their pain points. And then you bring this trifecta together in a way, as I understand it, you're doing amazing things in entertainment.
everything you're saying is accurate. I have brought up quite a few people into my organization that, I'm like the classic turn boys into men. I've created adults, that understood what it means to work in a team environment, to be on time, to have follow up. An example is we have a post event sheet where they get to comment, and there's two key questions. How would they evaluate the success of the event, and how would you evaluate the success of the event? How would you rate the party, and what would you do differently? When I'm training young people, Michael, I say to them, one of my classic things is beyond compassion. I say, when you are presented with something that is difficult or challenging, ask yourself before you dive into the solution or solve the problem, what would someone do who is smarter than me? What would they do? What would someone who had higher social intelligence than me, what would they do? And when you approach that problem and you remove ego, all of a sudden, all these different angles start appearing. You have to appreciate every time I'm at a high-profile event, a gala, a fundraiser, a 4-day conference, there are so many moving parts and therefore egos. Like I said, the caterer, the hotel manager, my stories have stories, but I've learned to, instead of having an alley fight every time we get there and everybody's in their lane and they want what they want, I've learned how to bridge all these services together to be the quarterback of the team, so to speak. And I've taught that to many of the young people that have come through my doors, and it's life skills that they've been able to take to other jobs. But if we focus on just the selling part, we could eliminate marketing, we could eliminate advertising. If we just want to talk about, how I really do what I do, there's a strong, how do I say this, focus on selling to relationships, right? It's the classic, they might not remember what I said, but they'll remember how I made them feel, right? So in all these instances, I believe that my success over the years has come from building that trust, building that rapport, expressing this sort of shared value system that we're not selling a product like a sweater at Macy's. I have a certain amount of time, 3, 4, or 5 hours, to maximize engagement, to leave this wonderful experience where everybody goes, wow, that was special, that was better, that was different. And you know, that attitude has permeated just about everything I do. So like very recently, I had to bring in a new admin. And the way that I was able to get her to understand what we were doing here was to say, I want you to imagine that any one of these people that's calling us is your mom. And your mom doesn't know our language and our priorities and how we do things. So you have to be an active listener. You have to be a guide. You have to be supportive. And you have to basically be that problem solver, offer that solution to the point where they say, oh my God, I can't imagine not doing this with you. Right? Your insights, your savvy are exactly what I need to feel comfortable in moving forward. I was nervous about planning this event, but it sounds like if I work with you and your team, you've got me covered. And that peace of mind becomes part of my brand and part of my pricing. Your pricing, right, is a signal, right? You're sort of putting yourself in a position of what kind of experience the client can expect, what category you're going to be placed in. Your price is your promise, right? It's what you stand for. And I try in every way to be consistent and reliable and all of these things. And whatever I'm doing in my own little private Idaho here as a employed solopreneur, it's working more than it's not, because my phone 38 years later is still ringing. And I'll make you laugh.
It's actually the same cell phone that you had 38 years ago.
It's true. It was a brick back then.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So in summary, just to put a pin in it for our listeners, we have an entertainment manager, if you will, or coach, who goes beyond the usual. We typically associate events and party planners with a transactional experience that's fairly nuts and bolts, with a minimal amount of customer engagement and this kind of empathy and sharing that you're conveying. So your differentiator, which goes to the heart of who you are as a person, both in terms of your capacity to entertain, but also your eagerness to engage, is this sweet spot of not only creating an event that's engaging and memorable for people and their families, but to do so in a way where you're connecting with the customer from the beginning to the end from their point of view. And
that's
doing
exactly
the best
right.
you can with a team who embodies your same attitude and values.
Very well said. I think we would both agree that, authenticity trumps sales tactics, right? That people sense sincerity. And if you're thinking long game, like I always have, I don't have a plan B, right? This is all I've ever done since I'm a kid. Relationships compound, right? So a good one can open doors for years. Referrals and this sort of grassroots sort of referral network has not only kept me busy, but I've been able to generate jobs for countless people, technical people, guys that schlep gear, MCs, DJs, and a thing we have here, we call them interactive dancers. So it's much like a cruise ship. It's like this full experience of stimuli. When I do an event, I think people are thinking when they call a DJ, they're going to talk music or pronunciations. I don't know but what we end up doing is I end up selling them this experience. Like, do you want us to bring video screens? Do you want us to help you with messaging? Do we want to create ambiance? I can pin spot your silent auction items. I can wall wash the room and make it feel vibey. And people are like, I didn't realize that you could do that. I said, look, I'm hearing everything that you're trying to do, and I want to help you. I think that if we work together collaboratively, right, I want you to think of me as a strategic partner in this event's success. And they love this. And they then turn around and tell their coworker, their boss, their sister-in-law, their neighbor, and quite literally, without buying Google ads and Facebook ads and buying, eyeballs on Instagram, I literally organically have built this little world that, I'm proud of.
So you have the A to Z ecosystem in terms of your own internal staff, whom you've empowered. You've created your own tribe where you share values and enthusiasm. And then externally, there's the A to Z ecosystem with word of mouth referral.
Yes.
And a network of people who value what you do and the way you do it, which again lies at really the heart of excellent consultative selling. And what about that experience? Can you double click, if you will, into what you mean by an experience? Because I go back to the traditional model of hiring the DJ. You hire the cook or the caterer, and you rent the space, and you've got a laundry list of things that you need to do logistically to do your bat mitzvah or graduation or wedding. And the DJ is just a line item traditionally. So how have you changed that model with a focus on the experience that you create?
So let me break it down for you. There are many kinds of DJs, people that call themselves DJs, right? There are guys that live in the music production side of things, the guys that do the EDM concerts and festivals, because they are really almost like musicians. Some of these guys have a background in percussion or piano, and they're really, really into the music of it. There are what I call gearheads. There are guys that really, really are into the speakers, the mixers, the consoles, the microphones, all of that. From day one, I viewed my responsibility as the hospitality angle. And so when I am live at an event, and you may recall from your own wedding held at a casino environment, that I don't live behind the DJ booth for the 4 hours that we are together. I am not performing at them. I am performing with them. I leave the DJ booth. Some would call it schmoozing. I'm high-fiving. I'm connecting. And I want to be able to use their names on the microphone. Hey, Leon, I'm playing your favorite song now. Whatever it is. And often I hear this regularly. People will say, are you related to this company or this CEO or this groom? And I'll say, no, I get to know them through the journey. We've been planning this for 8 months. I may have created their video montage, and I get to know these are neighbors, these are cousins, these are people they go on vacation with. And so I use that as part of my repertoire. Part of my live performance is this very personalized, I call it an experience. It's beyond programming music. There are different kinds of events, right? So like when I do a food truck event, I'm vibey. I'm playing background grooves and creating this sort of environment. But when I'm doing an event that has it's dance floor centric, I've got to mix music and I've got to get people dancing unconsciously to their favorite songs. Some people who are DJs don't love what I do. They would say, "Oh, I would never talk on a microphone," or "I would never take requests," or "I don't do shout outs." And those aren't my people. My
Yes. So
people,
so so you're
yeah,
different. You're in a different category, and I think it's great to delineate that and
yeah,
highlight some of the differences because DJs are some of the folks who often feel like they're the ones writing the music and that they're performing. Seriously, it is an art form. And if I could say, you look at the music in a secondary kind of way, it is a means to an end. It's not the
100%.
end itself.
100%. And I think that that's lost on people. I I speak at conferences now. I sort of pay it forward to young DJs, teaching sort of the business of the business to fellow mobile entertainers. And I say to them, there are these assumptions and you're getting lost in them. For example, you can never play a song twice. Bullshit. You know, there's this musical journey where DJs feel like they have to go from 98 to 105 beats per minute to 114 to 122, and they're building like this and they're creating this energy. And I say, bullshit. With a voiceover, I can go from Kendrick Lamar to the Talking Heads to Luther Vandross. It doesn't make a difference because the real magic is that people want instant gratification. They want, in the limited time that we're together, they want to be entertained. They want to sing along. They want to jump up and down. They want to show off. What they don't necessarily are asking of me is educate me. What is the newest thing? What is this Afro beat? What is the it's not my job to introduce new tracks in these environments. Rather, I dare say I'm almost playing neutral programming. And there are DJs that would say, oh, you mean you're playing trite music. You're playing obvious, bubblegum and pop candy. And the answer to that is often I do. But once they trust what I'm doing musically, I can take them on left turns, and I often do. And part of the fun of what I do, and one of the joys, which I want to say out loud, is instant kudos. I get feedback instantly, minute to minute. Every decision I make, one of the joys I have in doing what I do is it is cerebral. Every minute of an event is if then, if then, if then. And I don't come with a prescribed, this is what I'm going to play. As an entertainer, I might create what we call crates of ideas. I'm going to do this early. I'm going to do this during the meal. I'm going to do this for dancing. I'm going to do this for the awards ceremony, whatever it is. But when I'm live, they are counting on me and my sort of emotional and social intelligence to be appropriate, both with volume and programming. And I thrive in that sort of nonstop, we'll call it focus.
Yeah, I love the vector of that focus. And the vector of the focus is on the audience and it's not on you. And I think that's the fundamental difference here. So rather than a performing artist where the audience's attention is riveted on the performer and it's all about the content and the essence of the experience is focused on the artist and how people feel about the artist and their art, you've turned it completely on its head, where it's all about the audience and their experience And your job is to make them have fun and feel good. And you have a real-time feedback metric on that, which is if you play that song and they jump and they dance, and then you play another song, and it doesn't matter whether it's 95 or 115, it doesn't even matter whether it's country or blues or rock and roll. If they keep dancing and they keep jumping and everyone keeps laughing and having a good time,
Mission
then
accomplished.
then it's mission accomplished. And that's beautiful in its own way. And I have my own experience in this. I ran a couple nightclubs in the 90s in Chicago. And one of my ongoing beefs with some of the DJs, especially the resident DJs, was that they weren't paying attention to their own audience, which is they came in with, to your exact point, a sequence of programmed tracks where they were in control of the night. And any deviation of that was the problem with the audience, with the customers, with the venue. And it had nothing to do with them because they were the artist. And what I asked them to do was just to, peer out of the booth and pay attention. What's the energy level of the crowd? And every crowd is different and every mood is different. And the job of the DJ isn't to unload their genius on a passive audience, but to energize and enervate an audience to have the best time that they can. And that's a very, very different kind of attitude.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page. You articulated it very well. There's a place in my heart that respects those DJs who are more like brand ambassadors for a particular, like the reason you go to a reggae club, the reason you go to a jazz club is to admire the artistry. So we've had big booming clubs in Chicago where the reason you go there is to learn what the new music is, to be jazzed.
Absolutely. And don't let me disparage that niche either. I think what I'm trying to get at and what you've discovered and proven is that it's a balance between the two. That obviously you need competence and you need taste and you need sensitivity and you need to be an artist. But at the same time, you need to be sensitive to your audience and get into the vibe. And it's kind of a slider scale, right? From 0 to 100, where you could be Armin van Buren and there's coming to see you. And you could pretty much spin white noise for an hour and everyone will love it because it's Armin doing some experimentation. And then all the way to 100 where you've got a pre-programmed jukebox and you're walking around with a microphone. So, I think finding that sweet spot is what you do very, very well.
I want to add this too, that when I'm sort of in that customer journey and I'm walking them through all the things they have to think about, an example is, I give them, like, here's a list of deliverables. I need this by this date. I need this by that date. I need a logo. I need, names. I need all these, whatever it is that I'm asking for. But one of the recurring conversations is, let's take the example of a wedding. A bride and groom might say, what they're doing is they're going to put together a Spotify list or a Pandora list, and they want to give me 100 songs. And I slow their roll, and I say to them, it's wonderful to identify a genre or artists or titles of songs. But what I am not is a jukebox. I don't want to be spending my evening reading a piece of paper when I could be reading the crowd. Tell me what your MO is. Is it more important that you hear songs you like, or is it more important that I have engagement? And almost always they say engagement, right? So the next level is they'll say, well, we have a do not playlist. And I'll give you a funny little snippet of that. They'll say, no matter what, we don't want to hear any line dances. Please don't play the cha-cha slide or the wobble or whatever's trending. Right now it's boots on the ground. And I will say, and I will listen. And another example is, oh my God, I hate, what's an example? I hate Taylor Swift. So I let them say all these things. And then I come back to them and I say the following. Is it more important that you get your way, or is it more important that guests feel they were accommodated? Well, you can take requests. Well, what if those requests are in contrast to your wishes? And they say, well, that's a tough one. And I say, do you want your dad's college friend to come up to the DJ and make a request for Springsteen? And I have to say, sorry, it's on the do not playlist. Or your favorite aunt wants to hear the Cupid Shuffle, and in the middle of the party, she walks up to you and says, your DJ is being a dick and won't play the song that I asked for. And then she's got to make that long walk to the DJ booth. Fine, just play the damn song. Let's take the example of the Taylor Swift. She's got 4 girlfriends standing up at her bridal party. They're all 27. This one's a metalhead. This one's a 90s hip-hop girl. This one has seen the Eras concert twice and has spent $3,000 watching Taylor Swift in concert. Am I going to tell her very best friend from the 6th grade, absolutely no way am I playing a single Taylor Swift song? Because that would choke them. They'd be like, what are you talking about? What do you mean it's on the do not playlist? So I say to these couples, before you express zero empathy, maybe you could express some. What I propose is, if you acknowledge that we're going to be together for 5 hours and that you don't have to love every single track that comes out of the speakers, that might be a good time to get a drink. That might be a good time to go schmooze table 7. That's a good time to go bustle your dress. That's a good time to go to the restroom. And they're like, you know what? You're right. So I view some of what I do as this, I used the word advocate earlier, but I'm also sort of coaching them on how to be at their own event. I tell them, oh, you're having a sweetheart table. You're going to be released first to the buffet, or you're going to be served first. As soon as you're done eating, don't dilly-dally. I want you to go work the room, table by table. And they say, oh, that's a good idea. I said, I want you to imagine if you're having 180 guests, diverse attendance at your event, right? Could you mathematically give each one of those guests 2 minutes of your time? Where's your honeymoon? Where'd you get your dress? Your hair looks so pretty. Where'd you get those shoes? Your cake is gorgeous. No. If you gave every guest 2 minutes, mathematically, we would run out of time at your event. So I use these sort of insights, this sort of savvy to sort of guide them. And a friend of mine called it learned ignorance. Like, we better call Howard because he'll tell us what to do. Right? That's a big part of the relationship. I hate to say it quite that way, but they learn to say, you want to hear my best story? Can I give you a vignette?
Yeah, please do. Go for it.
Okay, this is one of my favorite stories of post-COVID. This was in 2023. A woman calls me up and says, Howard, I don't know if you remember me. My daughter is 30. You did her bat mitzvah 17 years ago. Listen, I don't want you to be offended. We're not using a DJ. We're having a live band. And of course I say, hey, congratulations. That's wonderful. But I remember, Howard, that you gave me a wonderful videographer. I'm not sure if that person is still in business. I was wondering if you would help me get a great video guy, because I know you see these guys every weekend. I hope you're not offended. I said, let me get this straight. You remember me connecting you, serving you, guiding you, helping you from 17 years ago, and your instinct was to call me for more help? Why would I be offended? You just made my day. You made my week. You made my month. I'm flabbergasted that your instinct was the guy that helped me all those years ago would be the perfect person to call. Yes, I'll give you 3 phone numbers. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm flattered beyond belief. She thought I was going to be upset because she wasn't using me for music. I had the exact opposite reaction, like, how great is that she viewed me as, the problem solver, the connector. It made me feel like all the things I've been doing matter.
Yeah, and it sounds like you have created a brand. It is the A to Z brand. It is the Howard Wallach brand. It is memorable. It's distinctive. It creates an emotional reflection in a flattering way on your clients, and they remember you, they refer you, and it basically reinforces your approach, which is it's not about you, it's about them, which again is the heart of consultative selling, customer service, and really delivering on a promise of solving their problems, addressing their problems, and not your own.
I would like to add this because I think this would be of value to your listeners. It's not about your elevator pitch. It's not about your social media. It's not even about your tagline, right? It's what story do people tell when you're not in the room?
Right.
Right. That's your real brand, right? When they tell how it felt to work with you, that's the brand that opens doors that you didn't even knock on.
I think that's a brilliant way of characterizing a brand that many people don't talk about, which is it's not just rolling your cart in the supermarket and reaching for this cereal box or another. It's ruminating, and it's sharing, and it's talking about your experience with a product or a service in a way that, again, is memorable, that resonates, and that you gloat about it. It's something that you enjoy and celebrate sharing. And that pretty much says it all. That's the heart of word of mouth. That's the heart of networking. And that's really the heart of human relationships, because we love to earwick. We love to gossip. We love to talk shit about people. We love to celebrate other people and ourselves. And if you could get folks into that mix and trigger their own innate desire to talk about you, then you get talked about in a way that gets you gigs and where you can keep doing the great stuff that you're doing.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a great segue, if I can, to the evolution in your career from doing these events, largely in the city of Chicago, but you have done national events, and you've done
I'm
conferences
blessed.
And corporate. Yeah. You've done corporate events, so there's depth and breadth to the events that you do.
But I have been lucky enough to
been invited on boats and cruise ships. So can you give us an overview of the different types of events, the different locations where you've done them? And you're not only nationwide, like ZZ Top likes to say, but you have gone global. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that evolution?
Well, clearly, I'm very grateful and blessed for all the things that have come my way. It started with destination weddings. A cousin or someone that saw me said, "You'd be the perfect guy." And at this moment in 2025, 38 years of doing this, I have more or less performed in every NFL city, whether it's at a trade show or a conference, whether it was a team building event, or it was literally me DJing a bar mitzvah. In the next 10 days, I will be in both Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and another event in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, while these aren't, incredibly exciting destinations, they're meaningful to my staff, who gets to brag and say, I get to go do my dancing or my DJing or my emceeing out of town. A to Z booked me, far away, and I get to take an airplane to go do what I do. So they get bragging rights, piggybacking off of my sort of brand and success, and that's a very pleasant thing. Um, the nutshell way I can describe the ships is more or less under the umbrella of networking. To be blunt, I was the right guy at the right time, at the right place, having the right conversation. And I've now been on 4 different ships. And as many of your listeners can appreciate, there is this expectation of delivering excellence. And that is a theme that resonates with me from day one. We all acknowledge when we see an amazing waitress, an amazing bank teller, an amazing dry cleaner, all those people that are expressing excellence. They deserve our attention, our kudos, our applause. I've even hired people who work behind the counter at Gap because I thought they were so extra. They were so 110%, and I'll be like, hey, do you think you'd be good at, can you work weekends? Anyway, I got involved in the ships, and I started at the ground, right? I started out as a crew guy, which meant as an adult I had to have a roommate and I had to live below the deck. But I'm forever grateful for that because it opened the Pandora's box on what that world was like. At one point, I was even thinking, I wonder if I could segue into being a cruise director. But without deviating, let me just sort of go back to the point. I, through a series of circumstances, found myself on a particularly, the kids would call it a bougie ship, a luxury line. There are, for those people that cruise regularly, there are sort of 3 known 5-star experiences, Seabourn, Silver Seas, and Crystal. And I'm now affiliated with Crystal. And I have an arrangement with the resident DJ where I do his fill-ins when he needs a vacay. So where he might work 4 or 5 months a year, I might come on for 4 or 5 weeks. And it is true that I have, because of the ships, built up quite a few punches on my passport, right? I've been from Australia to Singapore to, Vietnam and Malaysia to all over Europe. I've got probably more travel experience than most people I know, which is lovely in every way. And I will speak to that. But I'll tell you, the real flex is that I'm able to leave my business. How many years of making mistakes, attempting systems and automations and triggers and being organized and being intentional and going through people. How many trials and tribulations it took me to delegate and now have it so dialed in that someone else can handle the day-to-day minutia, and in my absence, produce 1,000 details for any given special event. This most recent odyssey, I left. They flew me to Mumbai, India, and I basically sailed around the Horn of Africa. But in doing so, I left behind almost 40 events that had to go off flawlessly and, represent everything that I promised and deliver on that. And that's the real flex, that not only did I get to travel and do my thing and continue my career path and enjoy that, but that this behemoth that I created locally is doing wonderful.
It's as Stephen Wright would say, it's a behemoth.
Hello.
A behemoth. You bring up a great point, though, that I think is worth noting. When you're running a business, there's the tendency to really want to do everything yourself because that's the only way you can be assured that it gets done and it gets done right. And in your evolution, there's a parallel track. On the one hand, people have recognized your abilities and you're doing these high profile, if highly niched, cruise ship events. But at the same time, that's opened you up to the need to delegate your managerial and logistical responsibilities. And for every single business owner on the planet, that is a challenge in one form or another. So, can you tell us in a nutshell how you've been able to let go that sense of control?
I mean, I learned through lots of relationships that more or less people want to shine. They want to express excellence. Not everybody. I mean, we could have a whole separate conversation about Generation X, Generation Z. But in the spirit of things, the right mindset and being accountable and being consistent, if you find the right people, they're hungry for responsibility. And I've also learned that not everybody views money as the ultimate reward. Some people enjoy freedom, for example. Some people enjoy the personal connections, the follow-ups. How did your sister's operation go? What's it like being a new uncle? And they're like, oh my God, you remembered that we had that conversation? I invest in my people emotionally, and they've been very responsive to that kind of loop where now they're willing to, put out, they're willing to give 110%. I had many, many logistics when I left this last time for this trip. Punch lists and gear assignments and truck assignments, as well as staffing. And I literally called every person in that pipeline to say, I appreciate you. I'm counting on you. Your participation makes a difference. Do that thing you do.
Yeah, the biggest challenge that I found, and no doubt most folks have found in managing a team, and especially in running a small business, is what I used to call gas. Do people have gas? Which is giving a shit. And you mentioned the generation gap, and so much has been written about millennials and the Zoomers, and I've had a millennial and a Zoomer on the show. And they struggle and strive to dispel the mythology of the slacker years and this lack of gas, if you will. And I think these folks embodied that sensibility of really going that extra mile, being flexible and adaptive, and just caring about doing a good job and being accountable. But it does remain a challenge, not only generationally, but with folks in general, in terms of empowering people and holding them accountable. And to your point, using some of your empathy and your customer service skills with your own folks, which is they're not gonna gas if they don't sense that you don't gas with them, which is they're gonna give a shit about your clients if you demonstrate that you give a shit about them. And that is often a missing link in the management equation, if you will, where we put so much time and effort into these logistics and concepts of human resources and organizational development. And yet at the end of the day, it's just showing that you care and communicating and connecting.
Communicating clear expectations and impressing upon them how important it is to deliver at your highest level. These aren't just skills that you're going to do for me. You're building character, you're building integrity so that no matter who you are aligned with, you can be proud of you.
Absolutely. And once again, I think that reinforces a theme that we have here over the last hour, which is growing up, which is being all that you can be. The definition of being self-actualized is operating with clear purpose and the determination to do the best you can. And the way to do that, as I think you exemplify, is to concern yourself less with yourself and focus more, and if not entirely, on the people that you serve. And in our highly transactional environment right now of political polarization, where Americans are more and more lonely and disjointed from each other and themselves, I think the underlying message that you share in such an eloquent and powerful way, exemplified by the success of your business, is focusing on other people as a way of not only doing well in business, but making your own life so much more fulfilling. That if we spend just a little bit more time on the needs and expectations and pain points and even suffering of other people, then we're not just doing them a favor, but we ourselves are living the good life and doing it in a way where everyone's existence is just a little bit better than it was yesterday. And especially in these crazy times, it's a very helpful and useful kind of salve, I think.
You articulated that very, very well. I know when we opened up, there was this notion of talking about selling. And I'll sort of wrap it up and say that when I hired my last admin, I said, she was nervous that she's not a closer, that she's not a rank and file salesperson. I said, you're not selling, you're attracting. Plain and simple.
And you're not just attracting, but you're triggering a relationship with people. So the old model of selling is I have something that I'm trying to convince someone else to buy. And it really translates into raw manipulation. I need to convince them to get something they otherwise wouldn't want. And the heart of consultative selling and doing what we do is exploring their pain points in a way where we solve a problem that they have and they can't wait to create a relationship with us for their own benefit. That's
right.
not selling.
No.
That's not selling. That's creating relationships and experiences. And it doesn't get better than that.
It's 1,000% true. We want to, understand, not convince. Right?
Yeah,
there's this notion of
and provide benefit. We want to give them something, right?
Yeah, and listen, and not everyone that we field is the right fit. It also takes sort of a mature mindset to say, transparency. This isn't going to work. I can't do what you're asking, and that builds trust.
Yeah, saying no. Saying no is the only way we could say yes with the right kind of situation. I say yes to you, Howie. Thanks so much for making time to share some of your life and the heart of your very successful and game-changing business. And you've inspired me, and you've entertained me since you got thrown out of class. And you continue to entertain and inspire as you travel the world, creating experiences from A to Z. Thanks for joining. Yeah, and thanks for listening to the Bald Ambition Podcast. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz. Like, share, comment, and come back for more.